Hello and good morning to our listeners from around the world. This is Brian Wesley Johnson, and I'm so glad that you're here because you've just joined us for another great episode of This Morning with Soulivity. I am joined by some very special friends and co-hosts, Candice Harper and Tami Gaines. Hello, ladies.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Good morning.
This is another Hot Topics day. Um, I love doing hot topics with both of you because you always bring the noise and the funk to it. And so, why don't we jump right in? Just want to remind our listeners from around the world, listen, we want your comments. We want your thoughts, your questions. Just post them right here in the chat on either on Facebook or YouTube, and we will get those up so we can include you in the conversation. Um, I'm trying to think of which topic we want to go to first, because they're both so good. Oh,
I think,
actually, all of them are so good because I didn't
yeah.
even include mine. Why don't we go? Why don't we
If I
start
do
with
say so myself.
right? If I do say so myself, if I do say so myself. Um, why don't we start with the Brady thing? Because I thought that was me and Sasha were talking about that last night, and I thought that was hilarious. It's like I'm really retiring this time, right? And so, Tammy, why
Yeah.
don't you start us off about this
So
craziness?
it is hilarious, but I also think it's deep, which I'll get to in a second.
Mhm.
All right. So my man retired at like the top of his game, right? Which is what anybody would. I don't care what we're talking about, sports, a business, you know, you want to go out at the top of your game because that's your legacy. That's how people are going to remember you.
Mm.
Okay. And there was all this fanfare around his retirement. Remember, social media broke? Like the news was
Mhm.
interrupted. Like people were like losing their minds because he is the GOAT. And then a couple months later, he was like, never mind.
Right?
So, so I was like,
Exactly.
I said to my partner, is he like trying to get out of like a contractual obligation? Like, is that why he just retired for like 3 months or 4 months or like that? Or was he literally like, shaking? He had the DTs because he didn't have football in his life. Okay, so he comes back and everybody's like, he's on a different team. And then, they're still trying to work it out. They didn't like gel right away.
Mm.
And then they got just I think they had like he had a really I think this season he had a pretty good season. It wasn't stellar, but it was a good
No.
season.
Yeah.
And then they like had that humiliating defeat in the playoffs.
Mm.
And then he was
Humiliating.
like, okay, I'm retiring again.
Right? And
And
with
everyone's
tears
like
in his eyes too,
with
like, oh,
tears, yep,
oh,
tears
oh.
in his eyes. And there's this whole talk about, Giselle, his wife wanted him to quit football and be home more. Um So I think that whole thing is really interesting, but the, question it raised in my mind is what is that psychology?
Mm,
Mm.
So in
mm,
general, like I think when you're really good at something and you've been good at it for a really long time, whatever that thing is, it is really hard to know when it's time to walk away and
right,
find
Mm.
your next thing to be really good at.
right.
So I
Mm.
think that's why some people like there's a saying you're only as good as your last success.
Mhm.
Mm.
And I think people forget, like, you know what? It's time for you to go try something new. Like, why was it so hard for him to walk away? And then it was so torturous he had to come back.
Yeah.
You when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about my favorite, well, one of my favorite football players that's similar who's a quarterback, and that's Joe Montana.
Yeah.
Mm.
And Joe Montana, he didn't do what Tom Brady did, was retire. He left the 49ers and he actually went to Kansas City, which is hilarious to me, for his final 2 years of football. And my guess is he was going through the same kind of thing. Like, okay, the 49ers are ready to move on, but I'm not yet ready to give it up. So what am I going to do?
Be-
And
it's and then I'm gonna add one more sprinkle, and then I want to hear Candy because she always has something awesome to say. Um, so yesterday, um, what's his name? The owner of the Bills, Kraft. Bob Kraft said yesterday that he was gonna figure out how to put together a contract for Tom for like one day so that he could retire from Buffalo.
Are
Mm.
you serious?
That was yesterday, and that's really happening. So isn't that deep also? Like they're trying to be like, we don't want you to end on a bad note, so let's figure out how to help you end on a good note, which is what you should have done the first time you retired.
Right. Let it go.
Oh,
Wow.
does anybody have aspirin or Tylenol? Because my head is starting to hurt.
It is truly mind blowing if you think about it
Wow.
from a psychological standpoint. But Candy, what do
Yeah.
you think?
I mean, okay, so caveat, even though I grew up in a town where football was a big deal, I can't say that I'm the biggest football fan, but who doesn't
Yeah,
know Tom Brady and his whole trajectory?
Right.
But
right.
what I'm thinking about is the tragedy of having the thing that you are most adept and passionate about, and obviously, like as a quarterback, that like he was born to do it, right? Like so
Right.
good
Mhm.
at it for so long, have such a short shelf life.
Right.
And
Right.
he's a longevity guy, right? Like he's an
Oh
outlier because
man,
they never last as long as he lasted.
not in
No.
the
And
NFL.
No.
right? And he's
No.
also known for being like what's he like vegan? He takes really good care of himself. Like clearly he is so passionate and focused and purposeful around this playing of football. And everybody's got to have their something, but to me there's a tragedy in that you can't do it your whole life. And
That's
I
what I'm
Right.
saying.
Right.
At some point, you got to move on, man.
You got to move
Es
on. And when I
especially
saw his
football, right?
especially football, because it's so dangerous, especially
Hmm.
as you get older. And when I
Hmm.
saw his tweet and the tears in his eyes, I really, really felt for him. Not because I was ever a huge fan, but I really felt for him because he looked like a man who just is going to be lost without what he loves. And that I can understand on a human level. Like if
Yeah.
somebody just took away something I'm so passionate about, or I had to give up something I'm so passionate about and I do so well, I can't
Mhm.
even imagine how I would navigate that at this
But you know
juncture.
what? But that's all of that is such a great point. I guess for me, like, why can't you pivot? Because he has
Yeah,
a broadcasting career. He got a really lucrative
Yes.
broadcasting contract. So it's
yeah.
like,
Y
why is it so
Preach,
hard to
Tammy.
pivot from playing to now talking about playing?
Now talking
Right.
about playing.
Right.
People want to hear what you have to say. Like, you're the greatest of all time. Like, I don't understand why that's such a hard pivot.
I don't
Right.
know. I mean, think about it though. Think about like greats in entertainment, like Patti LaBelle and Gladys Knight. If somebody said, "No, you can't sing and perform anymore, but you can talk about it." Do you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Oh, that's
I
so different.
Yeah.
why? Why do you
I
feel
mean,
like it's different?
yeah, I'm with Tammy on this one. I
That's
mean, I
different.
understand
Let me think.
the analogy of, like, doing what you love, but football and sports, just sports in
In
general,
general. Hmm.
Mhm.
are so demanding on the body, number 1. So, when you get into it, there's always the thought that you're going to have to end your career at some point. Either you're going to end it or someone's going to end it for you.
For you. Yep.
And
Hmm.
so, I mean, think about like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Remember how long he played in the NBA? I
Yeah.
mean, he was like the
He
oldest
was
player.
bald.
Yeah, he was bald. I mean, and he got to the point at which he was like done. And I think his had to do more with. I think he was dealing with some financial issues, but um Tom Brady, I mean, his last contract, Tammy, was it something like that 1 year was something like 20 mil or 40 mil? It was
It was
something, it was something
insane
insane.
for 1 year. Like, we know it's not about money, which is the one thing that does inspire me about Tom Brady because he has more money than God at this point, right? I think it
Right.
was like 40 mil, Bri, for like 1 year, which he just finished that year. So I don't think it was a money issue. I just think so. If we pull this to a higher level and take it away from football, um, so I heard a story. My friend is a wealth manager, and his boss is like 96 years old. and is literally blocking like any sort of new account trickle down to his brokers because he's sitting there and he's like getting compensated for it. Like he has no incentive to leave. But meantime, this guy was like one of the best in the industry, and now he's like the dude in the bathrobe and slippers, like walking around the office. So, so, so if we forget football for a second, take it to another level. Like, why is it so hard for people to know when it's time to go? Like, time to move on.
So that's the question.
That's the question.
That's the question. Why is it so hard
Hmm.
for
And I
people
know
to move on?
you
Yeah.
both have stories of people that you know that was like, oh, they should have stopped that like a long time ago.
Oh
And
man.
that could be positive or negative, I guess. It could be like if you think about addiction, like that's something else that like why is it so hard to let go? Whatever that addiction is.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if like what you're good at actually equates with. I mean, I guess in a way you could be addicted to the time that you spend. So I don't know if it equates with the same. Uh,
Well, you could be addicted to like the thrill of it.
yeah. I mean,
I-
to me, I'm not sure. I still don't fully understand why you guys think that performing and singing is different. I think it's all about your passion. I think it's all about like if you feel purposeful in something, and even the guy who works in wealth management, you feel passionate and purposeful and you've done something well, especially for a long period of time and been committed to it. Because I think there's nothing more challenging than actually, it's like the alchemist, like actually living into what you're here for
Mhm.
and then
Mhm.
also being a success at it. And so no
Mhm.
matter
Yeah.
what that might be, if it's something that, like I said, has a short shelf life or
Mhm.
it's taken away from you, then the pivoting and the trying to resolve it, like the guy walking around in his bathrobe, it's like, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I almost feel like it's a little bit of a death and it speaks to your mortality because now you're too
Right.
old to do it. Now
Right.
people don't trust you as much. You're not as exciting as you once were. Like I think that's where the challenge comes in.
I guess for me, I mean, I understand. I agree with you to a point. And that is that that it is something that people are passionate about. It is something that that could be here today, gone tomorrow, and that it's hard to move on. I think the difference is that in athletics, that is part of the journey, right? I mean, it's why he's vegan.
Mhm.
It's why he takes care of himself. It's why he does all these things because going into it, especially when we're talking about the number of players. I have a good friend of mine that was in the NFL. And we're talking about the top half percent of
Mhm.
players across the
Mhm.
United States. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
so, and that's in every major sport. I mean, maybe
Mhm.
baseball, basketball, whatever it is. It's that tiny, tiny bit of players. Well, they
Mhm.
all know going into this that they're not going to be playing forever because that's just the body is just not going to allow them to do that. The
Mhm.
longer they stay in when they get older, the more risk of serious injury that occurs. And so
Yeah.
I think that part, that conscious part that's there. I mean, if you're a singer, you're not thinking about the threat to your body from singing,
Yeah.
right?
Why not? What happened with Mariah? Like there
Oh,
is, I mean, if you're a singer, it's an
Oh my
instrument.
god.
Right?
wait a minute. Did we switch topics?
What just happened? What just happened?
I'm just saying that it's
Okay,
all
wait.
your
You
body
know what?
has a shelf life, right? Like,
Well, so yeah, to your point though, to your point, Candy, singers do. So I know a lot of actors and actresses, and like mostly from Broadway, and
uh-huh.
they do vocal rest. Like there is threat to your
Correct.
voice from
To your
Yeah.
singing.
voice
So let
from
us.
singing. Yes.
It's. I think Brian made a really good point about how it's a little bit different, but
Mm,
I know you like we like to give like an action item, something like really solid
Hmm.
on
mhm.
the show. Okay, so here's something to consider.
Hmm.
We're living a life, right? We're stringing together a series of experiences which at some point will make up like the totality of our life.
Right.
Mm,
I believe that when you're really great at something for a really long time, and you can't change your perspective, because I believe part of your legacy is, now that you've proven how great you are, turn around and teach other people how to do it.
Mm,
So you
Yeah.
can do that,
Yeah.
like, as a broadcaster, you can do that
Yeah.
by being very thoughtful about it. There's little kids watching like this broadcast, and you could like sprinkle the broadcast with really good information for them.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you could like go and do training camps. There's
Yeah.
ways like to pass on your knowledge, and I think that's why I'm so stuck on like, if you just see the pivot as a really good thing and a way
Yeah.
to continue your legacy. And by the way, they could do motivational speaking. Like, there's a whole career
Oh, yeah.
afterwards that
Yeah.
allows them
Yeah.
to transfer their knowledge, and I think that's really honorable.
Yeah.
And maybe that's it. Maybe that's the reason why it's so difficult, because like all of us, like growth means, part of growing means expanding, and that means you have to let go and surrender to the person that you were
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
embrace the person that is here today and in the present moment. And that means, listen, bruh, you got to put down the football.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You got to put down the football,
Pick up a pen,
and pick up the pen, pick up the mic,
marker, pick up a mic. Yep.
write a book. I mean,
Mhm.
there's so much more to life. And I mean, even be more of a father, right?
Yes, how about that?
How about that? I mean, because,
Oh, by
Yeah.
the way, I forgot
that,
about
but
the kids.
yeah, I mean, that was part of the whole breakup, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That the deal was, okay, we're going to support your career, and you're going to go out here. I'm going to take care of the house. I mean, and now Giselle got money now. I mean, she got plenty of money.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like
Mhm.
she needed his money.
Mm-hmm.
But she decided to do that. And that when it came time and you were going to retire, that is going to be, you're going to be the father and be here all the time. Not that he wasn't a good father, but be more of a good father if that was the case. So,
Yeah.
wow.
Well, I mean, I think both of you, 100%. I'm in total agreement with what both of you said. However, I think one thing that we do, especially with our heroes and our famous people, is that, and especially with ourselves, is we forget that grace has to be given for evolution.
Mm,
And so to
mm,
go
Mm.
from being at
Mm.
the top of your game and, being Tom Brady, the hero of everything you love, and then realizing that you just can't do it, like that you're done, and then pivoting, like what you were saying, Tami, all of those things would absolutely support him in having a really good legacy. I agree, but it's going to take him some time. And I feel like the one thing that we need to all take away is that when we expect an evolution like that in our lives, that we have to be
mhm.
so graceful with ourselves, because you
Oh,
have to
yeah.
Mhm.
grieve that old life. Like you
Mhm.
Yeah.
were saying, Brian, you got to, like, do the processing and the emotions and the feelings of, like, I got to let this go. And that's
Right.
hard as hell.
Yeah, it is hard.
Absolutely.
It is hard
you
as
know?
hell. It is
I
hard
Yeah.
as
think
hell.
my brain probably thinks a little differently, because I've been an athlete my entire life,
Yeah.
and I've also been an entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
both
Right.
of those things require quick pivots without a whole lot of processing.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So
But he also
those are
has
really
the
good points.
wealth, right? He has
Mhm.
he has the wealth and the luxury of, he could take the time if he's willing to, right?
Right.
Like he
He's
doesn't
gonna
have
be
to
on a
think
boat
about,
like in the middle of the Caribbean for 5 months
right? Exactly.
with a personal
He
chef
get all the
I know,
craziness,
right?
and a
Right?
stream of women, since he's like divorced now.
right? There'll
Well,
be no
well,
Not
shortage.
not with his sons. Not with his sons.
well, speaking of taking a break, see what I did
Good
there.
segue. Good
Why
segue.
don't we take a break? We'll come back. We'll stay on this a little bit and kind of talk about a little bit more about, how do we support ourselves in making that pivot? How about that? Sounds
Awesome.
good. All right, we'll be back in about 60 seconds, everyone.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Hello, welcome back to This Morning with Soulivity. This is Brian Westley Johnson along with Candice Harper and Tami Gaines. We are talking about it's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. And
Speak on
Tom
it.
Brady retires again.
And never mind. Oh, no. Now I'm gone for real.
This time. Woo, man. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is hard to say goodbye. I mean, because that's what he's trying to do. And I think he really gets this time. He got to go. He needs to leave.
Maybe that's why he was tearful.
Yeah, I think that's why
Because he
tearful.
finally leaned into like, oh no, this is like really, I'm really going this time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets one of those hits, and he used to be able to spring up, and now he's like, wait a minute, where's the medic?
Mm-hmm.
It's true. And veganism is great, but it ain't gonna have you,
It's not body armor.
Exactly.
Right? It ain't no body armor. Ain't no, wait a minute, don't hit him so hard. He's the GOAT.
Yeah.
No. That ain't how they play.
You made such a good point right before the break, Brian, about and Candy, you said like we have to show grace.
Yeah.
So what do you think, like what are some like concrete examples of that?
Yeah.
Like what does that look like?
Well, I mean, there's the grace that we show ourselves and then the grace that we show others. And I think, oftentimes if we're not willing to show ourselves a lot of grace, we expect people to be a light switch. And I always tell, even when I'm working with clients, I'm like, you're not a light switch. You've been practicing whatever you've been practicing, however long you've been practicing it. And the first step is just acknowledging that that's the case. No matter what it is that you're trying to change or evolve with, you have to acknowledge that you've been doing whatever. And how long was Tom Brady? What, 30 years or something ridiculous? Like
something, just about 27 years or 30 years.
Yeah.
20-something, yeah.
So that's a really long time to be practicing something, not just the skill of football, but the camaraderie of the team, the fame, the winning. Like he's been practicing a way of being for a very long time. And so without being an acknowledgement of that, and as you're starting new practices, and that's the second step, is developing new practices, recognizing that you're going to want to fall back to what you had before and letting yourself observe yourself with it and love on yourself a little bit and say, you know what, I'm just used to the other way. Be patient, give myself time to start this new way, right? This new way of maybe, like you were saying, if he becomes an announcer or something like that. So the new way is that I don't go to the locker room. I'm now going to the green room. And I got to figure out ways that I can still incorporate certain things I used, but then also let go of the things that aren't necessary anymore.
Well said. Well said.
Wow. I think the only thing that I would add to that, and that would probably be in the beginning and on the way, is, earlier this week we had Dr. Karen Johnson, who was talking about living grieving. And, this is a time that for when you're going through that transition, that you're actually grieving the end of that part of your life where it's transferring, it's transmuting into something different. And it is okay to take time and to allow yourself to feel what you feel, to lick your wounds from that, and find your way forward. That, just saying that, oh, well, I'm just going to do this and it's okay, that's not necessarily practical or healthy. And so feeling what you're feeling, getting in touch with listen, this chapter, not my life, but this chapter of my life is coming to a close, and I'm now about to write something new, and I feel something about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like love what both of you just said. I think it's powerful. I tell people, and I think this is that instance. Like, if I could sit down with Tom Brady on this
Tom, you
podcast,
listening? You listening,
Right.
Tom,
Tom?
you're welcome to come on anytime. We will make space for you.
Right.
But I would tell him, listen, see things as they are, not better than they are, not worse than they are, just as they are. So if we look at things as they are, like, you've had an incredible career, you've amassed more wealth than you probably imagined when you started playing football when you were like whatever 10.
Mhm.
You have a beautiful family, right? So that's as they are.
Yeah.
Right.
Better
Right.
than they are is like, I have more in me. I could still do this.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's better than.
Right.
And worse than they are is I'm done. Like Brian said, like, my career is over and I have
Yeah.
nothing to do. Like, that's worse than they are. So
Yeah.
I would just say, like, hey, see things as they are right now.
I like that.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, great topic.
Yeah, I love that.
We
Mhm.
came out the gate firing. I like
I'm
it.
gonna send this to Tom Brady.
We better.
I'm totally going to.
Yeah.
All right, we're
Yeah.
gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna make a turn, and then Candice, you've got another great topic for us to talk about. I've got to prepare myself because this is the next. I mean, this first one drained me a little bit. I got to get some more energy.
Yeah, let me go get some water.
Especially talking about Mariah, but that's a whole nother topic.
Woo!
All right, everybody, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be back in about 30 seconds.
6 years ago, when I started Soulivity, my vision was to support everyone in improving their life through the discovery of their passion and purpose, so they could become the best version of themselves, to battle fear and ignorance, and create a better world today. Get inspired to live your passion and purpose. Visit Soulivity.com now.
And we want to remind all of you to please follow us on social media. You can go to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, even our webpage, and you can find out more information about what we're doing, what's going on, new articles at soulivity.com as well. Remember, if you go to our webpage, remember to sign up to our mailing list. You can do that at soulivity.com/this-morning, and you'll receive even more exclusive content. So, Candy,
Woohoo.
bring it, girl. Bring it.
Candy girl,
So
you are my world.
that's one of my favorites.
Candy.
Out of all the songs about candies, that's one of my favorite
Wait,
ones.
wait a minute.
And that
See,
one
we know
Too.
we're on fire because you see this right here. Dr. Chanel, like, fire this morning.
she did. Right? Oh, I'm glad she's a doctor because my pivot is into the world of medicine,
All right.
right?
All right.
And women's health. So my partner found this really great article from Yahoo News by Toni Karen Rabin. And she's talking about the fact that there's a new study that states that women who have a genetic predisposition for ovarian cancer should have their fallopian tubes removed. And so let me just preface everything by saying that I'm one of those people that borders on a strong belief in science and a strong distrust for Western medicine and capitalism. So I think that women's health within that dichotomy has suffered a lot. And I think a lot of times, without going into the disenfranchisement story, I feel like women's health is sort of a throwaway and by the way, Tami reminded at the top of the show, today is Wear Red Day for heart disease. So that's a good thing.
breast
disease for
breast
women.
cancer.
No, I thought it was heart disease. Are you sure? Because I looked it up.
Oh,
It said,
is it?
yeah.
Oh, if you looked it up, then you're definitely right.
Right, well,
Because I was trying to
Red
remember
heart.
what I heard this morning.
Yeah. But either way, because we have a day for breast cancer, we have a day for heart disease, those are all, fantastic. But I think that when it comes to Western medicine, women's health is often, you know, it's like, oh, things aren't working, have a hysterectomy. Oh, and now there's the thing with the BRCA gene. They're like, okay, cut off your breast, which science, okay, if that's reasonably what we need to do. But this article basically talks about how ovarian cancer itself is actually not that common. However, they don't have a test that can accurately predict whether or not you're going to get it or not. So their
Mm.
solution is take out your fallopian tubes because you need your ovaries to produce certain hormones as you're aging, and if you have your ovaries, it's beneficial later in your life around heart disease, osteoporosis, and sexual dysfunction. Now, being someone who is not a clinician, I am not a doctor by any stretch of the imagination. However, I am someone who concentrates on wellness and helps other people with their emotional wellness in order to support their body. And I've had a couple of good friends, one in particular who I helped through fibroids on an emotional level while she was dealing with her doctors. And one of the things that they wanted to do right away, because she was over 40, was give her a hysterectomy.
Mhm.
Which if any of you know, it's a very invasive, life-changing, body-changing surgery that it cannot be taken lightly.
Right.
And so
Mhm.
what concerns me about this article is that, it's such a throwaway that they can't find the test that's gonna predict. So their solution is, well, just get rid of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? That
Throw it
and
out.
I
Well,
struggle with
that's and you know what? Let me ask you a question, Candy.
that.
Someone in the Facebook chat said, "And what do they suggest for people with a predisposition for testicular cancer?"
Right.
They wrote they
Right.
wrote
Exactly.
testicle cancer, but testis.
Yeah, we got it.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Anyway,
Yeah, they don't say,
which
"Well,
is
lop
pretty
them
fun.
off."
Lop them off.
Right?
They
So
are
that's
very, yeah,
yeah,
they're very quick to tell women to get rid of body parts.
exactly.
Like they're
And so
there for a reason.
exactly. Even as we're aging and they start to work differently or not work, it's like obviously in an ideal healthy environment, everything has a function, right?
Right.
So what do you guys think about that as far as like, just how as women, I mean, Brian, from a male point of view,
Mhm.
like as women navigating this Western health system, I mean, I hate to be in the conversation of everything's a disparity, but, what do you guys think about what comes up for you when it comes to things like this and your own experiences with it?
Um, so immediately what came up for me is I have in my very close circle, like the people that I'm tightest to,
Mhm.
3 of them have had hysterectomies because their doctors told them to,
Mm.
because they had fibroids.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And one was like really young. She was like, I don't even think she was 40. I think she was like maybe 38 or 39.
Yeah.
And I said to her, like, whoa, that is such a serious decision.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, the pain will go away. Well, there's other ways to manage pain, and I don't mean with drugs,
Yeah.
but cutting out, there's a lot that makes us a woman, right? It's
Yeah.
not just like our inner, piping. But still, there has to be like just having that removed. That's it. Like no chance of having any more kids, which is possible, by the way. There was like some
Right.
Right.
70-year-old woman that got pregnant.
Right.
Um, it cuts off so much as of what's possible as a woman,
Yeah.
and it makes me really sad because people put doctors on pedestals
Mm.
in here in the West, Western medicine. What the
Mhm.
doctor says goes. But the
Yeah.
truth is, if we were all better advocates for ourselves when we were in a doctor's office, I think we'd see different outcomes. And that is a disparity thing because,
Yeah.
particularly in our community, it's like, oh, the doctor said that, got to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, even my own dad, the doctor told him to do. My dad has thyroid cancer and he had prostate cancer. So he's under like doctor care. And the doctor told him to do something. And I found this like really great all natural antioxidant. It's called resveratrol,
Mhm,
and it kills cancer cells. It's totally
mhm.
natural. It's
Yeah.
like comes from the red wine. It's red wine extract, among other
Oh,
things.
wow. Yeah,
Wow.
So he
yeah,
was like, "No, the doctor did not tell me anything about resveratrol." I was like, "Well,
yeah.
you don't need a doctor. It's natural. Here's the research." He just won't do anything natural because
The
the
doctor didn't say to
doctor
do
didn't.
it.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you'd rather be, like, sick than I don't know, try something else?
Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know if it'll help you, but it certainly can hurt you.
Right?
Y'all, I have like so many different thoughts about this. I guess at at the tippy top is that specifically in this country, um, healthcare isn't just or fair
Mhm.
between men and women, first of all. And then when you bring in social economic kind of stuff, then that's a whole nother piece, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so the fact that there aren't choices early on before it gets to this point is one thing, right? Where we're talking about like wellness and and um and how we take care of ourselves. I mean, it was just in the last decade where, like, your health insurance, like, if you get health insurance from your company or whatever, where you can get discounts for taking care of yourself before you go to the hospital, like
Mm,
wellness kinds of stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and so, uh, healthcare for me has always been, like, something that's been painful, just even based upon my own health experience. So I'm looking at all that.
yeah.
But I also think that it's just to tell a woman, you know, off the bat, they come in, one day you're happy and you feel good, and then the next moment the doctor's telling you, well, those fallopian tubes you got in there, they got to go.
Yeah.
And
So
this is as a preventative measure. This isn't because there's something wrong with them. It's a preventative thing, right, Candy?
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, um, Candy, I wanted you to comment on this.
Yeah.
Mm.
Somebody on Facebook said, "Is this a recommendation to remove the fallopian tube rather than a complete hysterectomy? In that case, it may be a step in the right direction."
Yeah, I mean I think that is a good point, that it is possibly a step in the right direction not to just go for all of it. And it is. It's a recommend it's what it's saying is that they'll leave the ovaries because ovarian cancer tends to start in the fallopian tubes. So
Mhm.
I guess they feel like they're getting it at the origin spot. My concern is just that
Mhm.
yes, a step in the right direction, but
But
my wish
but
is that like you were talking about with a natural remedy, that it just overall could just be more holistic. Like, there's
Mhm.
so many layers, and like what you were talking about, Brian, there's so many layers to when you're having a health issue, particularly with your reproductive organs. So many
mhm.
layers to, your emotions, your mental state, what you do naturally, what your atmosphere is, how you're living, what foods you're eating, whether you're getting enough sleep and water. I know that sounds crazy, but that does affect the functioning of your organs and what kinds of diseases you can develop. And I think, when they come up with these sort of like, "All right, let's just fix it," kinds of things, it
Right.
negates that there's a whole way of living that could be slower possibly, but more healing and more beneficial, and that the diseases that we get in our body are just representative of much bigger problems that are going on in our lives, right?
Right. Right.
Mhm.
So,
It's
Right.
yeah,
dis-ease. Dis-ease.
dis-ease.
Dis-ease.
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly. So I feel like that gets
Um,
negated when we have these bites of information that are like, "Oh, this is what the OCRA has decided, and this is, what we're recommending." And then like you said, Tammy, those who just follow, "Oh, if the doctor said it, do it,"
yeah, exactly.
end up
Well,
38 years old with a hysterectomy.
yeah, I think it's an interesting question for so many reasons. It's an interesting, like, approach.
Yeah.
Um, so, I've I think I've told you, excuse me, I think I've told you before I have a kid with special needs.
Mhm.
So, my twins were in the hospital. My daughter was there for 4 months in the neonatal intensive care unit, and Trey was hospitalized for 18 months. And I very quickly realized at the very beginning that I can't take everything they say as gospel
Mm.
Right.
because
Right.
Yeah.
some of this just sounds like unnatural. And I don't mean like in a crunchy granola way. I mean like we're gonna take this and put it in there so it works like that's supposed to.
Yeah.
Like it was like the Tin Man. So I think part of hopefully what we can work toward as a society is being better advocates for our own health by
Yeah.
being informed
Yeah.
and being going to your doctor's appointments with your own intelligence and
Yeah.
Right.
knowing when to defer. And there is a line like there's many times I'm like, hey, I read this and this, and the
Right.
doctor's like, yeah,
Right.
but did you also know about this and this? And
Yeah.
then I'm
Right.
like, nope, I didn't know, but I'm glad we had this conversation. Like,
Right.
proceed.
Yeah.
And
Right.
and yeah, and there's tons and tons of information out here about the merging of Western and Eastern philosophies of medicine
Mhm.
Mhm.
into real practical and progressive um, um, medicinal and wellness kind of practices that have shown to be highly productive for the body
Mm.
in different ways. I mean, right now, one of the partners with Soulivity is Dr. Mark Mancola. I mean, this is a dude who's been around for in practice for over 40 years, and he's doing the exact same thing, and he has measurable outcomes from all a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's resources out here. So I love, Tami, that you were talking about. Listen, um, just because this doctor says XYZ does not mean that that is the end of the story, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That you can also look into other things um, and uh, and have discussions both with your regular doctor, but with other resources as well. That may
Mhm.
be MDs that are doing this combination of techniques. We're just on the cusp of all this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and so my hope and my wish is that we'll get to the point at which, especially in this country, where we become more of a country about wellness and not a country that is based in like reactionary, okay, something's wrong, so now we got to fix it or get
Right.
rid of it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what?
Absolutely.
That's so well said. Uh, Real quick. So my daughter had a herniated umbilical cord, and
Mm.
what that means is she
Wow.
has an outie, her
Yeah.
belly button,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's not like a normal outie. Like you've seen people with outie belly buttons.
Yeah.
Hers was so long it went into her diaper.
Oh.
But we got
Wow.
this is so crazy. I gotta play this for her because I forgot. I don't think I've ever told her this story. So anyway, the doctors were like, "Hey, we need to do something about her belly button." When she was, I don't know, she was like 9 months old,
Yeah.
and it
Wow.
wasn't that bad. And I was like, you know what, this kid's been through enough. Like,
Right?
let's we will handle that like down the line. I'm not, no, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it just got bigger and bigger, and then she would play with it. It
Well,
was
hey, that's what
literally
we
like
do.
she would like be. It was like her comfort
Her own
thing, and
baby.
yeah, and eventually the pediatrician was like, Tam, we gotta lop that thing off. Like
Yeah.
it's out of control.
Oh, no.
And
Wow.
it's funny because initially, like she told me, like we gotta get this surgery and get this thing repaired, and I was like, oh, I don't know, she really likes it,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but finally, like that was a really quick give, and the doctor told me all the risks that she was running because it's basically like it's a hernia, like in
Yeah.
your
Right.
in your
Right.
abdomen. Um, so Brian, I think it's so interesting because we talk about like all this Eastern Western, but there's also a conversation around like how you choose your doctor,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
right?
Oh
So
Lord.
my
Mm.
pediatrician was old school, and her mom was my older kid's pediatrician, and they make house calls, and they're willing to let something go until they're not willing to let it go any further.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think how we choose our doctors and what their philosophy is and understanding going in. Like,
Yeah.
is this guy like a chop
Yeah.
chop, or is, you know what I mean? Or are you going to a chop shop, or are you going to somebody that has a pretty good balance?
Right.
And also, like you're pointing at, is developing relationship if you can. I think that if you have in this country the privilege, even if you're on Medicaid, to actually have access to healthcare, we have to know that we can be selective. And a really
Mhm.
good litmus is, can I, on some level, connect with this person and develop a relationship where they actually know me? And then also, are they just procedural, medicinal, or do they actually care about, they ask me questions about my lifestyle and
Right.
my well-being and the other
Yeah.
parts of
Mhm.
my humanness. Like, I
Right.
think that's the mark of a good doctor. They care about overall, not just, oh, let's just throw something at it.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know
That's
in
an
my
education thing.
Yeah, I know in my own health journey that is the number one thing, right? Do your research, do your homework. Just don't go to a hospital or a clinic and say, treat me. Know
Yeah.
who's treating you.
Ask good questions.
Ask good
Always ask
questions.
questions.
Ask things like we were talking about, like Eastern medicine and that kind of thing. Ask them,
Mhm.
hey, listen, do you um prescribe to like natural healing techniques in addition to regular prescription drugs? I mean, those are all great questions to ask. And so,
Mhm.
Yeah.
man, this was another good topic. All right,
Right.
Yeah.
Candy.
Candy always drops the bomb in the
I
middle of the
know, right?
field,
She's like,
and then
we
the shrapnel is
she's
like, we can never be done with this topic. It's such
uh,
a huge topic.
I know,
Right.
batting 1,000. What, Tammy? You ain't doing so bad yourself now.
I
You
know,
batting
right?
1,000 too now.
Always leads to the depth. And I also can't take full credit because Wes handed me this article just about 10 minutes before we went on air. So
No, way
Okay.
to go,
Oh, that's
Wes.
so sweet. Go
that's
Way
ahead,
to
so
Wes. Way to
good.
go.
show up properly.
That's
Right.
right.
He's
I
waving.
love it.
That's a relationship deposit right there.
Right. Value add.
Yep. Put it in the
Well,
bank, Wes.
Right.
we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, I have a quickie topic to talk about, and it has to do with what just happened in Congress about a day or two ago.
Which
It was the first hearing for the oversight committee, and I'll tell you more on the other side of the break.
just dang.
We'll be back
Just
in
dang.
about 60 seconds, y'all.
You can find all the Satonic products at our Go shop on Soulivity at go.soulivity.com now. Shop for beauty products, skincare, hair care. It is all there at the Go shop. Go shop Soulivity.
And welcome back to This Morning with Soulivity. This is Brian Wesley Johnson along with Candice Harper and Tami Gaines. We are having some fun today because we're talking about some hot topics. And I have one quick hot topic for both of you that I was thinking about after the first House Oversight Committee meeting that happened either yesterday or the day before. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but
I think you
Representative
should level
Marge,
set.
I know, right? I
Tell
know,
us
right?
what you want to tell us.
Yeah, I know, right? Here we go. Just take a breath.
Ooh,
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia.
mm, mm.
I know. See, we're going there already.
Right. As soon as you say the name.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. Like, oh Lord.
Oh, damn.
She, they go around and they have turns and they ask different questions, and the person who they were asking questions of was the person who was over COVID release funding
Mhm.
during the Biden administration over the last couple of years, right? Giving out COVID release. And she falsely claimed, I want to make sure that I say that part, falsely claimed that an Illinois elementary school received 5.1 billion, I said billion,
Mm.
to teach
What?
critical race theory.
Uh, what the hell?
I'm just gonna
Keep
let that.
going.
I'm gonna let that
I can't.
marinate for a minute.
Wow.
Marinate for a minute.
What in
Yeah,
the wide world?
5.1 billion, y'all,
That's
which was
Lord.
completely. This is for, and just to put this into context, the entire Chicago public schools budget is 9 billion. Okay,
Mhm.
so I wanted to make sure that this became more of a positive conversation. And
Look,
so
I'm
I
doing
wanted
something
to
I've
talk,
never done before. I'm taking notes.
right.
Right.
I wanted to talk about the fact that New Jersey, this is in context, New Jersey became the first state to mandate K through 12 students to learn information literacy.
Hmm.
And
Go
this
ahead,
was
Mary.
amid a worrying rise in internet miscommunication and political conspiracy theories. So
Interesting.
I thought that that was a really cool thing. And I was like, okay, yeah, we need to do that because we have a generation of children
Mhm.
that may be hearing this stuff from our elected leaders. And instead of doing their homework or having done some homework to know what is true and not true, that they'll have some skills to
Decipher.
discern, yeah, and decipher, falsehoods from reality. I mean, it might have been 5 million, but but even then, that's a lot of money for an elementary school to and so basically they'll know what is a lie and what isn't a lie. So what do you guys think about that?
What comes up for me right away, what scares me is I wonder, like, the people who really need information literacy are the people who are spewing all of this stuff. But what scares me is what's worse, that she is purposely being false or that she needs information literacy. Like, I can't figure out which is worse as an elected
she's a
leader,
product of the product.
right?
Woo!
Oh my god. You
Yeah.
know,
Right?
oh my god, that's great. I gotta tell you guys something. Every time I hear the name Marjorie Taylor Greene, I immediately am like, she is a PTA mom gone wrong.
Ooh.
Like
Mm.
she's the worst parts of society.
Mm.
She's a PTA mom gone wrong, and I was the head of the PTA at a couple of my kids' schools, and those moms worked our asses off to. Oh, sorry, Brian. Sorry about that. Um, to raise money for really specific programs. Like PTA does such good, but right in the middle, like sprinkled around the edges, are are women that had hard driving careers like on Wall Street or,
Right.
in one big
Mm.
city. And then they have kids and they quit their jobs and they stay home to take care of their kids and they rechannel all their effort into like the PTA. That's their new
Right.
thing.
Right.
And she's also a Karen, a
Yeah.
racist, uninformed, big loudmouth.
Yep.
Right.
Um, and she's just basically stupid. And I'm sorry, I don't suffer fools.
Well,
Like, I don't care. I'm not talking about a degree.
no.
I'm talking about common sense.
Right.
Mm.
Like,
Right.
she just literally has no common sense. And we've talked about it before. She has no emotional intelligence. So, um, I am very sad and concerned that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Kevin McCarthy, who had to try 15 times to get elected. Listen, 3 strikes and you're out. We would
Right.
have gone through the entire 9-person batting order almost twice to get
Yeah.
him elected, which is insane. At some point, like I don't know.
Nancy was one and done, y'all.
Of course, because she
Yeah.
had her caucus under control.
One
Like they
and
were
done.
on the same page. But anyway, about the second piece, real quick.
Hmm.
I live in New Jersey. I've been really involved in education here.
Mm-hmm.
So this information literacy thing doesn't surprise me. However, I think it's very disconnected from the reality of where we live today.
Yeah.
Mm,
Because it's not the kids. The kids have completely checked out of politics, which is problematic for a lot of reasons.
Right.
yeah.
Like, they don't care, they don't wanna hear it. I asked my daughter, "Did you see what happened with Kevin McCarthy?" She's like, "Who's that?"
It was like,
Right.
what?
Right.
Like,
Right.
so who they should be targeting is, adults that don't, get information inputs from various sources so they can make their own informed decision.
Yeah.
So don't like, the kids could care less. Our kids are good. Like, they know when they smell BS. They do. And I got a bunch of kids and they're all like, we don't really care about that.
Yeah.
Eh,
Um
I hear you, but at the
my da-
same time,
my daughter's in law school. She's like, I said, Don't you guys care about politics?" She's like, 90% of the students at Northeastern Law School that are first years, they are not affected by what happens in politics.
Mm.
mm,
Only people like that are doing constitutional law and people with very specific disciplines. So go ahead, Brian. You were
but I
gonna
think, but I
disagree.
think, but I think, I mean, I hear you, and I agree to a certain degree that people, even if you're an adult, you should always be a lifelong learner. You should always, question and be curious.
Mhm.
I mean, it makes life interesting that way, right? The
Right.
world becomes this place of wonder. But I'm
Right.
also very concerned that this next generation of children aren't, they're just going online and they're reading a whole bunch of stuff and they're spreading different things and they're not being taught how to think critically about what's the difference between a fact, an opinion, you know, uh, what is what are some ethics around creating and sharing information, right? Both
Mhm.
online and even in print. I mean, where's those fine lines? And I think, especially in this internet age of information, that anybody can go out there and just post anything. I mean, they can create a
Yeah.
website and it can be nothing but lies. And so, I just want all of our children to be armed and with some power in that frontal lobe where they're able to
Mhm.
go, oh, no, this doesn't seem right to me. Let me do some checking. Let me do some more research, right? To find out. Let me ask a question before I believe that this is true, right?
Mm.
Because even Marjorie Taylor Greene, if she had said that she believed that this elementary school received COVID funds, not put a number in, to teach critical race theory, it still could be false, but it wouldn't be as false as saying 5.1 billion.
Didn't we talk about a lie is a lie?
Well, yeah, that's true. That's
You
true.
can't. There's no
Oh,
putting a little
wow.
bit of icing on top of that lie. Like, a
Yeah,
lie is
that's
a
true.
lie.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to put some lipstick on that pig.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
You did.
Listen, we got a couple of minutes. It's February. It is Black History Month.
Woo.
And I wanted just to
Woo.
share some really cool, at least once or twice a week, I'm going to be sharing some like cool things that are happening around Black History Month. And one thing that's happening here in the nation's capital is the Library of Congress, the National Archives Records Administration, the National Endowment for Humanities, the National Gallery of Art, the National Park Service, the Smithsonian Institution, and United States Holocaust Museum are joining in to pay tribute to the generations of African Americans who struggled with adversity to achieve full citizenship in the American society. And one cool thing that's happening at the National Portrait Gallery that's beginning on February 10th is the second group of portraits from Brian Lanker's 1989 book project, I Dream a World: Portraits of Black Women Who Changed America.
Mm.
The Portrait Gallery recently acquired all 75 portraits from the Pulitzer Prize winning photographer series and is celebrating the acquisition with a two-part exhibition. Now, the portraits includes people like Althea Gibson, Odetta, Cicely Tyson, Oprah Winfrey. And this is absolutely free. So if you're in Washington, D.C., and you're here between February 10th and September 10th, come out to the National Portrait Gallery and check out these beautiful portraits of my sisters in power, these beautiful, remarkable Black women. So how cool is
Awesome.
that, y'all?
Wonderful.
Very cool. Very
Yeah, I'm
cool.
going. Let me
They just
see.
need to take a couple of pictures of y'all and put them up in there.
Right? Me and
Get my
Tami.
good side.
I'm ready.
Well, oh man, well we're out of time, but before we go, ladies, thank you so much for being here. We've got the debut of Tami Talks coming up on Monday. This is 12 Eastern, not 11 a.m. Eastern, everybody. It's 12 Eastern.
12 Eastern. And can we just, I'm so excited, Brian, because you and
I
Candy are going to be my first
I
guest.
know it's going to be awesome.
Talking about resilience, yo. Talking about resilience.
Hey,
one of my
breaking
favorite
it down so we can break it back. Oh man, thank you both. Listen, again, remember to follow us on social media. Sign up for our mailing list so you can be in the know about everything that's going on. Really quickly, Candy, you've got some things going on at Candice Harper lovecoach.com. Quickly, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, if you want to create a love life that loves you back, email me, Candice at CandiceHarperLoveCoach.com, and use the promo code Soulivity50. And if we work together, you get 50% off.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, listen, on behalf of all of us, I just want to say thank you for joining us for another episode of This Morning with Soulivity. We hope that you come back and join us every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern, or you can listen to the rebroadcast at 11 a.m. for all of you out on the West Coast. And until next time, keep on having these real fascinating and powerful conversations and create a life full of high quality living today. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.